If you're someone who loves thrilling detective stories, then you've probably heard of today's case. This is the famous disappearance in the tropical rainforests of Panama. Two young women traveled thousands of miles for a trip, but they never made it out of the jungle alive. Later, their camera was found, yet the photos it contained left people puzzled, unable to make sense of them. Were the girls victims of a tragic accident, or were they murdered? Today, let's revisit this mysterious case. At the end of the video, I'll also share my own theory and perspective on what might have happened. The story began on March 15, 2014, when two Dutch girls, Chris Kremers and Lisanne Froon, set out for a 6-week trip to Panama. To prepare for the journey, they had worked in a cafe for 6 months to save enough money. Both were filled with excitement and curiosity about the mysterious land of Panama. For the first 2 weeks, everything went smoothly. They toured around and even joined local charity activities to help the community. By the 3rd week, they arrived in a small town called Bouquet and stayed at a local youth hostel. There, they met many tourists from around the world and quickly made friends. The most famous attraction in Bouquet is the Baru volcano, the highest mountain in Panama at 3.474 meters. It's a dormant volcano, last erupting around 1550, though the volcano is tall. The hiking trail is well traveled and considered safe for tourists. From its peak, one can see both the Pacific Ocean and the Caribbean Sea at once. Known as the Two Oceans View. On April 1st, Chris and Lisanne planned to hike the Baru volcano. Normally, tourists would hire a local guide to avoid getting lost or encountering danger. But as experienced hikers, they decided to go on their own. That morning, they carried only a few simple items and set off with the hostel owner's dog. Their gear included 2 cell phones, some bottled water, a few clothes, and a digital camera. If all went well, it would take 6 to 8 hours to reach the summit and return to the hostel by evening. But by that afternoon, only the dog returned. The 2 girls were nowhere to be seen. At first, the hostel owner was concerned but decided to wait another night to be sure. When they still hadn't come back the next day, he reported the matter to the police. The girls' parents were also quickly informed. In fact, the 2 had been in the habit of sending daily messages to let their families know they were safe. When no message arrived the day before, their parents had already sensed that something was wrong. Local police immediately organized search teams to comb the mountain trails but found nothing. The following day, the government even deployed helicopters for aerial searches, still without success. Because the missing persons were foreign tourists, the Panamanian government took the matter very seriously and mobilized maximum rescue resources. But Panama is a country of vast wilderness, and much of it is dense rainforest, making the search extremely difficult. On April 6, 5 days after their disappearance, the parents arrived in Panama. They offered a $30 reward for anyone who could provide information about their daughters. This was an enormous sum in a country where the average daily wage is about $10, equivalent to nearly 10 years of income for a local worker. Moreover, the reward wasn't limited to finding the girls alive. Anyone who provided valuable clues would be compensated. Drawn by the reward, many locals abandoned their work to join the search. And yet, despite such a massive search effort, no trace of the 2 was found. They vanished without a trace, neither alive nor dead, as if swallowed by the jungle. After 3 months, people gradually began to accept that they were likely gone. But the search did not completely stop. Authorities still wanted to uncover the truth, because this was a vital tourist route. Without answers, the incident could severely damage the local tourism industry. Then, one day, a local woman discovered a blue backpack deep in the forest. The belongings inside confirmed it belonged to Chris and Lisanne. But instead of solving the mystery, the discovery only deepened it. The first strange detail: the backpack was found far from the volcano trail, around 8 kilometers away. While 8 kilometers may not seem far, one must remember this was untouched rainforest. To get there from Baru, one would have to cross rugged jungle terrain with no trails. Even seasoned locals with professional tools found it difficult. How could 2 girls, with no proper gear, have ended up in such a remote place? The second suspicious detail, according to the woman who found the pack. She had been in that same area multiple times after the disappearance but had never seen it before. This meant the backpack must have been placed there recently. The third detail: the items inside the pack were neatly arranged. Unlike belongings that had actually been used in the wilderness. What kind of emergency did the girls face? Let's first look at what was found inside the backpack. Among the items were 2 pairs of sunglasses. $88 in cash, a half-full bottle of water, 2 sets of women's underwear, 2 cell phones, Lisanne's insurance card, and a Canon digital camera. This camera would later become a crucial piece of evidence in the case, which we'll return to shortly. After the discovery of the backpack, speculation arose that perhaps the girls hadn't simply gotten lost in the forest. One major reason was that the belongings inside were arranged too neatly, nothing like items hastily dropped in panic. Instead, it seemed as if someone had deliberately placed the bag there for others to find. More importantly, the bag still contained the half-full water bottle and both cell phones, one of which still had battery power. These are essential survival tools if stranded in the jungle, making it highly unlikely they would have been abandoned. Some suspected that the girls had encountered foul play, that they had been attacked, and the perpetrator took their backpack. But since the disappearance was drawing major public attention, the perpetrator, fearing exposure, might have later returned the bag to the forest. Why not take the valuables like cash, the camera, or the phones? Possibly to create a staged scene, to make it seem as if the girls themselves had left the belongings behind. This theory sounded plausible at first, but after detailed analysis of the items, police completely dismissed it. Let's talk about the phones. Both were found inside the backpack, Chris's iPhone 4 and Lisanne's Samsung Galaxy. Investigators extracted the call logs and found that around 4 p.m. on April 1st, the day they went missing, both phones had attempted to dial the emergency number. This showed that they were already in danger at that point, but because there was no signal in the forest, the calls never connected. On April 2nd, Chris's iPhone made another emergency call, while Lisanne's phone dialed 3 more times, but again, none of the calls connected. From this, we can almost rule out the possibility of an immediate criminal attack. If they had been assaulted, they wouldn't have been able to make calls the following day. On April 3rd, Chris's iPhone attempted a third emergency call, still unsuccessful, before losing all reception. Meanwhile, Lisanne's Samsung never picked up a signal that entire day, though it remained powered on overnight. On April 4th, Chris's iPhone was switched on multiple times to search for signal, but all attempts failed. To clarify, every time a phone is powered on, the system automatically leaves traces of attempts to connect to the network, which can be checked through forensic analysis. Lisanne's phone, however, stayed off that whole day. One possible explanation is that she had forgotten to turn it off the night before, realized the battery was running low, and deliberately powered it down to save energy. On April 5th, both phones were switched on again to search for signal. Lisanne's phone then ran out of battery and shut down permanently. Up to this point, their phone usage was consistent with rational survival behavior in a lost-in-the-wild scenario, something anyone could understand. But from April 6th, things took a strange turn. Chris's iPhone could no longer be unlocked due to incorrect passcode entries. Why would the passcode suddenly be entered incorrectly? A widely accepted theory is that the person using the iPhone was no longer Chris, but Lisanne. The problem is, the phone had been unlocked normally just the day before, which strongly suggests that something had happened. Perhaps the two were separated, or Chris was no longer able to use her phone. Lisanne might have tried to use it to call for help but didn't know the code. Beyond this theory, there's hardly any other logical explanation. In the following days, the iPhone was repeatedly turned on, with failed passcode attempts each time. On April 11th, the phone was switched on one last time. The wrong passcode was entered again, and then it shut down permanently, never to be powered on again, even though it still had 22% battery remaining. This means that at least until April 11th, one of the girls was still alive. If that was Lisanne, then it's understandable why she later abandoned the phone and other belongings, without the passcode. The iPhone was useless to her. Next came the digital camera. Police examined all of the photos, hoping to find new clues, but the results only deepened the mystery. At first, the photos were typical travel shots, the girls smiling brightly. Some even captured them hiking the Baru volcano trail on April 1st. From the pictures, it was clear that before they made the first emergency call, they were still following the correct hiking route, looking perfectly normal. After that, no more photos appeared until April 8th, exactly 1 week after their disappearance. For the entire week, the camera had not been used, but suddenly on April 8th, more than 90 new photos were taken, all of them shot at night in the forest. Strangely, most of the images were of the surroundings, with very few showing people. Only one picture seemed to capture the back of Chris's head, identifiable by her blonde hair. Since Lisanne's was brown, but why would anyone take such an odd picture? especially considering this. Chris's iPhone had been inaccessible since April 5 due to repeated wrong password attempts, suggesting she might have already been in trouble. Yet the strange photo was taken on April 8, which is hard to explain. Some other photos showed scenes of the forest, a plastic bag hanging from a tree branch, candy wrappers on the ground. Altogether, over 90 bizarre, purposeless photos were found. Even more puzzling, investigators discovered that photo number 509 had been deleted. Some might think deleting a photo is nothing unusual, it could have been an accident. However, on digital cameras, deleted files usually can be recovered with specialized software. Even if the entire memory card is wiped, data can often still be restored. But this one image was erased completely. Its data irretrievably destroyed. This raised disturbing questions. Who deleted it? Why did they delete it? What did the photo capture? To this day, these remain unanswered, making the case even more mysterious. Investigators expanded the search around the spot where the backpack had been found. Not far away, they discovered the girl's clothes neatly folded on a rock, again. Not the way someone would discard items in panic. Yet, aside from the clothing, no trace of the two was found. It wasn't until 2 months later that a shoe was discovered near a stream, containing a human foot inside. Nearby, a few bones were also located. DNA testing confirmed that the remains belonged to the missing girls. At last, it was clear that they had perished. However, the remains accounted for only a very small portion of their skeletons. Most of their bodies have never been found. Because so little was recovered, the cause of death could not be determined. Forensic analysis revealed something unsettling. The bones were unnaturally clean, showing no signs of scratches or damage. This suggested they were not moved by animals or washed away by natural forces, which would normally leave marks. In other words, the evidence strongly implied the girls had been killed. To this day, the case remains unsolved. Because of the strange clues, especially the photos, it has become one of the most mysterious and famous cases on the internet. Finally, I'd like to propose a personal hypothesis. Based on the evidence available. Please note this is purely my own speculation for discussion. I believe the girls initially took a wrong path, which led them deeper into the forest. During this time, they repeatedly tried to call for help, but none of the calls went through due to the lack of signal. On the second night, Lisanne forgot to switch off her phone, causing the battery to drain, leaving only Chris's iPhone usable. On April 5, they finally encountered someone in the forest. At first, they were overjoyed, believing they had been rescued. But this person harbored sinister intentions. When they least expected it, he attacked. The two women resisted fiercely. In the chaos, they became separated, and in their panic, they accidentally took each other's belongings. Lisanne ended up with Chris's backpack, which contained the iPhone, while Chris had Lisanne's, which held the camera. While fleeing, Lisanne tried to use Chris's iPhone to call for help. But because she didn't know the passcode, she made repeated failed attempts, eventually giving up. Meanwhile, Chris took photos with the camera. I believe her purpose for taking so many pictures was twofold. First, to use the camera's flash as a source of light while moving through the dark forest, and second, to mark their trail and avoid circling back. Even the plastic bags tied to tree branches could have been part of this effort. As for the photo of the back of her head, it may have been because Chris was injured during the struggle with the attacker, perhaps bleeding from the back of her scalp. She could have taken the picture to check her wound. Tragically, despite their efforts, the attacker eventually caught up with them. One by one, they were killed. At first, the killer took their backpack home and examined the photos on the camera. Upon discovering that one picture might reveal his identity, he deleted it permanently on a computer. Later, as the disappearance drew media attention, he became afraid of exposure. To cover his tracks, he returned the backpack to the forest, staging it to look like the girls had abandoned it themselves after getting lost. Again, this is entirely my own theory. If you have a different interpretation, feel free to share it in the comments. Finally, I want to thank the very first supporter of my channel. Your encouragement means the world to me. See you in the next video.